So I make these videos, and while I'm making it, in the middle of it, I get interrupted by a family member who, yeah, and I don't. It's hard to recapture the moment after it's lost, but I'll try. So the problem that people have is a lack of understanding and education. The Bible is not to Christianity as the Quran is to Islam. The Quran is regarded as direct, unfiltered commandments of how to think and how to live. And those commandments come directly, unfiltered, to humanity from God. So, and a lot of it is non ambiguous, a lot of it is very direct. And the origins and how this came about is in my previous video, or an accompanying video that I have for this. And this is one of the things that interrupts me. So, one of the people. Let me think. So my point is that everyone else is on the wrong track. That everyone else is fighting the threat to our country in an improper way. This defeating this through military action is not a permanent solution. We're looking at it like kind of like I don't know, fighting communism or fighting an empire or something like that, and it's not the same kind of thing. What was it? Pat Tillman, I think. He said after 9/11, he said this is the Pearl Harbor of our generation, and he ran off to die under friendly fire. No, that's not the correct way to address this. I think, well, a lot of thoughts come to mind, but what I want to say is that even addressing it like a psychological issue, there, that whole department is on the wrong track, in my opinion. That whole field of academia, they're only interested in presenting a curriculum that students will take in order to get a job. That's their focus. They don't want to be questioned. They don't want to. They don't want anything that will threaten their careers and their livelihood and their validity. They're not open to. Well, normally, science is open to contrary ideas. This isn't science. What they're doing is not science. It's a scam. It's a scam. The idea that it's a psychological issue. No, in lieu of my talking to Amy Lewis, I've been perusing, if that's a word, online content and professional opinions, but they all miss the mark because they're assuming that the radicals are the fringe of the religious community. They're thinking that it's must be kind of like Christianity. And by the way, the women on the View, like Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar, they don't know what they're talking about either. They're assuming things based on their limited knowledge. But I have the knowledge. I've gained the knowledge. They're assuming that every religion has their lunatic fringe. Islam's not like that. What keeps them all from strapping on suicide belts and blowing up the non-believers is the fact that a large part of the Muslim world is illiterate, and they just rely on their imams, kind of like how the Catholics used to be. They didn't have the Bible written in their language; they had it in Latin, and so they just relied on authority because they didn't know how to read Latin and Greek. Well, Islam's kind of like that in a sense now. But the commandments in the Quran are clear and incontrovertible and undeniable that you gain favor with Allah if you sacrifice your life killing the unbelievers. There's no wiggle room. By the way, changing the Quran to make it more palatable, like King James did when he translated the Bible into English, changing a little bit to kind of hide some of the embarrassing stuff. Doing that to the Quran, it would be a grave sin in Islam because it's the direct word of God. You could translate it, and actually some translators have done that. They've actually kind of tweaked it a little bit to make it more palatable and hide the errors. But I digress. The point is, I think they don't know what they're doing. There isn't a profound psychological, for lack of a better term, illness that radicalized Muslim go through. The al-Baghdadi had a master's degree in Islam, and he told people, Islam's not the religion of peace; it's the religion of fighting. A lot of people who, depending on the school you go to, a lot of people who get educated and know what the Quran really says, they become the terrorists. It's the educated, it's the mainstream and the core that are the people that want to blow themselves up. It's not the lunatic fringe like you would think in Christianity. It's not what they're saying. I keep repeating myself, but it needs to be said until it clicks, until I get through. But there's an so there's two things. There's the saying by Carl Jung that thinking is difficult. That's why most people judge. It's easier to just judge people. If people come up with a truth that's unpalatable, it's better to dismiss them as kooks or judge them or call them Islamophobe, even if they're telling the truth. And there's the African adage that says, and I have to keep repeating it, embrace the truth even if it's harmful, and reject the lie even if it does you good. And if we all do that, we'll all live in peace. And don't you want to live in peace? Don't you want an initiative that does more good at a less amount of money than all the military hardware and all the so-called experts in academia can do? That's what I'm offering. That's what this initiative is all about.